Congratulations on the new album, Days of Thunder, which comes out July 4th on Silver Lining Music. Name of the band is Tower of Babel. I listened to the album this morning, almost all morning. I loved it. Really brought back a sense of my younger years, like Deep Purple and Rainbow and actually Dio. Really impressive. And I have a couple tracks I really enjoyed that we'll talk about and stuff like that because I want to try to just concentrate on this album only. You know,
Sure.
I mean, if you want to talk about past stuff, you can, but my focus wants to be on pushing this album to the limits because I loved it. You know,
Yeah, yes, I'm all for talking about the new record.
cool, cool, cool. Well, let's go down track by track and tell me your impressions of each song and how it was written or whatever you can tell me about each song. So we'll start with Dominion.
Dominion is on the keyboard. Maestro Mistheria wrote that, and that's just so he's solely responsible for that track, and he wanted some kind of dark, kind of cool keyboard, atmospheric keyboard thing that would open the record. So we kind of let him have free reign, and he's a master at what he does. So that came out quite cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool because like not listening to the whole album right away, just listening to that, you have different perceptions of which way the album is going to go. So I thought dark and eerie but it like really great actually.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That particular track doesn't give you the like it's like you don't really know what kind of record you're going to be listening to when you just hear that track like on its own. But which is a cool part of that.
Right, yeah, I liked it. I liked it. How about track number two, Rules of Silence?
Rules of Silence, that's yeah, and on all the tunes on the record, with the exception of Dominion, I wrote all the music for,
Right.
and then and so that one's like a complete that's a complete rock and roll rainbow kind of thing, I'm thinking it almost reminds me of something like you'd hear in like the Joe Lynn Turner era, like Fire Dance and Drinking with the Devil off of Bent Out of Shape, or Can't Happen a Year off of Difficult to Cure, like that kind of action, like a fast up tempo Blackmore induced track. So that's one of my personal favorites on the record, and that was one of the first tunes I wrote for the record.
Cool. I could definitely feel the same sense that you're feeling. It's your music, but I could feel what you were trying to project in your music. I enjoyed it. You know.
Yeah, thank you. It's not a big secret that I'm a lover of all things Richie Blackmore,
Uh-huh.
and 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 what was I going to say? So it's quite obvious when you listen to the record. Somebody else commented that it's like if Rainbow had made another record in this day and age, it might sound like this. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, definitely think so. Definitely think so. Track number three, Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder, that one I'm thinking kind of like, or I was vibing like maybe an earlier, like something you'd hear on like one of the earlier Dio records, like Dream Evil or Holy Diver or something like that. And
Right.
that was a bit more like on the metal side compared to like some of the other more Rainbow and Deep Purple induced types of tracks. But I like that one right away. The record company really liked that, so that's why it ended up being the first single. And originally, I wanted to call the record Rules of Silence because yeah, we were just picking a track, and Maestro, the keyboard player, is like, "Nah, that's a weak title. We got to call it Days of Thunder. That's a much stronger title." And I was like, he's right. So we went with that.
Cool, cool. I don't know what song it was, but he actually reminded me a little of Judas Priest, one of the songs, and I just got that feeling listening to one of the tracks. I can't remember which one it was, but I got that sense too. And same thing, like I guess I nailed the Rainbow and Deep Purple. It definitely has that essence. So I enjoyed it. Blind Are Your Eyes, which is my favorite track.
Blind Are Your Eyes. That to me now. So somebody I did an interview with last week. I think it was like the Rock Hard in France said that reminded him of an Accept tune,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was it. Which it's cool to everybody interprets stuff different. Like me, that was like what was I thinking there? I was thinking one of those mid-tempo more melodic kind of rainbow, like kind of Joe Lantana era rainbow types of things, like that he did so well. Stone Cold. Now, it's
Right.
not quite as commercial, or it's quite a bit heavier than like say Stone Cold or Street of Dreams or Can't Let You Go
Right.
or any of that kind of stuff, but almost a little bit more metalized version of like that kind of thing is what I was going for on that.
Definitely. I could feel that. Actually, I'm from New Jersey, and so is Joe. So, like, I got to see him a lot, and I got the same feeling listening to your new album. So that's cool. You know, Alone in the Dark, Desert.
Alone in the Desert is one of those epically long Eastern kind of Blackmore induced things where what was I thinking there? I was thinking like a Gates of Babylon Stargazer kind of thing, that long kind of epic. And even though they really didn't have any kind of influence on me, the verse part where it first comes in when the vocal comes in almost reminds me of like a 70s like hard rock, could be like a 70s hard rock like Zeppelin or Montrose kind of thing with the with that kind of vibe when the vocal first enters, but then it goes into the heavier Eastern thing right before the chorus.
Right. Yeah. Um, do you think that the type of music you're playing is making like a comeback a little bit? People are looking for 80s and 70s music now brought up to today's age.
Well, I mean, I hope so. Anyway, I mean, you're always going to have you're always going to have fans of classic hard rock and classic metal,
Right.
and also that stuff gets passed on to different generations. Obviously, Iron Maiden's one of the other than Metallica is the biggest metal band in the world.
Right.
Or I'd say along with Metallica. So obviously, obviously. Yeah, there's a huge fan base for classic metal, but I hope so, and it's kind of like that. What's old is new again. So at this point, in this particular decade, it's almost kind of it is definitely like a retro kind of record and stuff. Takes you back to like the labels press gentleman who's from the UK said it reminded him of seeing Rainbow at the Hammersmith Odeon. You know what I mean? Like back when he was young. So I thought that was very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Next track, In the Heat of the Night, which is my second favorite song.
Yeah, that I remember that I really like the riff portion of that,
Right.
and and that came together rather quickly. Sometimes I'll write things in pieces where I write like one main part and then maybe I don't write the verse or the pre-chorus or any other sections of the tune for like maybe weeks or months later. That thing I came together all in one bit, and once again kind of like kind of rainbowish, but it doesn't it doesn't like it's not like it wasn't inspired by any particular track or any particular vibe. It was just a cool riff, and it fell together really quite nicely. And Joe really does a nice job on that.
Definitely. Definitely. Sacrifice.
Sacrifice is sacrifice one of those one of those fast rainbowish purplish kinds of things. So that's what I was thinking there. And then you have some of the neoclassical stuff going on in the solo section. Kind of like, reminds you of like some of the early Rising Force stuff.
Right.
With the keys and the guitar going back and forth and stuff.
Oh, cool. And track number 8, Black Knight's Prelude.
Black Knight's Prelude is just the introduction to Trust Me,
Uh-huh.
and then since Trust Me was a lengthy track with that added, they kept it as like a separate track and had me title it, and Black Knight, and people refer to Blackmore as the Black Knight, so that's where that comes from.
Mhm.
And that's like I'm vibing all of my favorite intros to Mistreated, whether it's Graz 75 or Made in Europe or Live on Stage or live in Germany. So you have so that's kind of like that was my direction on that whole thing.
Okay, and the last track, The Princess.
Oh, Princess, once again, fast, up tempo, rainbow purple induced number. Again, like that kind of thing.
Cool, cool. Can you tell me about the members of the band?
I'm sure on Joe Amore's on vocals, and they refer to him as the French Dio. You know why? Because he's French and he sounds like Dio. Big surprise.
Uh-huh,
And he's in a band called King Crown,
uh-huh.
and I think he did some damage with a European band called Nightmare for a while. And
Hmm.
Joe's tremendous. And the way we came upon Joe was Maestro Mistheria, the brilliant keyboard player.
Hmm.
He heads the Vivaldi Metal Project, and he had Joe singing on on parts of the Vivaldi Metal Project, and he said, "Hey, check this guy out. He'd be an ideal vocalist for us." And
Hmm.
I heard him. He sent me like a YouTube link, and I think he was playing with a Dio tribute, one of his Dio tributes, and he was doing some early Dio tune, and he sounded killer. So I'm like, okay, I'm sold, no problem. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. Definitely.
And he's an awesome dude, as all the guys in the band are. And Maestro Mysteria is the keyboard player,
Uh-huh.
who has who's had like quite an illustrious career, and he currently plays with Bruce Dickinson's Mandrake project as
Cool.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that's a heavy duty gig for sure, and he's a brilliant musician and all the guys in the band, brilliant musicians and awesome dudes as well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Nic Angileri the bass player, and a killer bass player, and he's got like a master's in music, and he'll play like classical gigs and jazz gigs and contrabass and all kinds of stuff, and he's an extremely accomplished player. I think in metal he did a stint with Jorn Land for a while,
Hmm.
and he's done a few other things, but he's always playing all the time. And then on drums, Mark Cross. Mark's a complete powerhouse, hits
Uh-huh.
insanely hard. And he's from the UK. Both Nick and the Maestro are Italian. Joe is French,
Hmm.
and Mark is from the UK, but I believe he lives in Greece now. And
Uh-huh.
he did a stint with Firewind. Also did a stint with the Scorpions and Halloween as well. And he's got a laundry list of records he's played on and stuff. And Mark also had a big part in not only the production of the record, because he had a dude that was mixing it analog in Greece that he oversaw, but he also helped Joe out quite a bit with the lyrics and the melody line. So certainly contributed way more than just doing damage on the drums.
Cool. Cool. Can you name me a couple new upcoming guitarists you think I should check out?
With me, when I'm listening I usually listen to all my heroes, but there's tons and tons of great young players
All right.
that are beastly. Jason Richardson is just an absolute monster. But he's been around for a while, and
Right.
he plays with All That Remains. He
Oh,
replaced
okay.
the late great Ollie Herbert in All That Remains, and he's a killer player. I believe
Mhm.
that. And then another guy I really like that I think is outstanding is Brandon Ellis that plays in Black Dahlia Murder.
Right. Yeah.
He's a great player, but there's tons of there's tons of great players in modern. It depends. You have great tech death players. Some of the new guys doing the genty stuff. Of course, Tosin Abasi,
Hmm.
and Pliny and intervals and all that stuff. It's not stuff I listen to, but all those players are all monstrous and stuff. Me, if I'm listening to guitar, it's one of my it's my core of heroes. Blackmore.
Hmm.
Um, Yngwie Malmsteen, of course, Michael Schenker, Gary. I love all eras of Gary Moore. But when he was a metal player and his blues stuff, Uli John Roth, his solo stuff, and his classic work on the early Scorpions records. I also love Wolf. I love Wolf Hoffman
Hmm.
from Accept, and Andy LaRock from King Diamond, and Hank Sherman from Merciful Fate. Those are all. Usually, if I'm listening, I like some Christian Pelletteri's another a great fast player.
Hmm.
I don't really listen to any of the younger dudes, and most of my favorite players are all European. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. All right.
as I used to say, Hendrix the only dude that I listen to from America.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Definitely. Now, recording this album, did you do it all on WAV files, or you guys got together?
No, it was done like everybody doing their thing in their home studios and stuff. Like most records are done on a
Hmm.
modest budget in this day and age. I recorded a lot of the guitars and wrote this record like a while ago. It just took some time. By the time the rest of the fellas got their parts happening, and we found a proper home for it over at Silver Lining. So it took a little bit of time, but I had written this record. I was recording one of my solo records, Diabolical Ferocity, right around the same time where I did like the two of them.
Right.
I'm always doing something. I've recorded I don't know how many records, something like but between bands and solo and Alcatraz and all that nonsense. Oh, I think over 30 now.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go into your history. I looked at Metal Archives that
Yeah.
tells you all your releases and stuff. I kept on scrolling and scrolling and
Yeah,
scrolling.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But my best work, or if anybody's like interested, the best stuff I've done are my last few solo records: The Dark Lord Rises, Diabolical Ferocity, Symphonic Onslaught, and then of course the last bunch of Alcatraz records. And so Alcatraz, you have the Take No Prisoners 5. I was on most of Born Innocent and wrote a bunch of tunes on that. The one and only record we did with Graham. Oh, and then the double all night long live in Japan, where that was on a Japanese tour where we played all of Down to Earth and all of No Parole. So for me, being a huge Blackmore and Yngwie fanatic, that was awesome. That was awesome. So that record came out back in April. So I got a lot of stuff going on, but excited about the new Tower of Babel record. And if people like Purple and they like Rainbow and and great European tinged classic hard rock / metal, they'll certainly enjoy the record. And of course, if they love guitar,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loving guitar is like a must if you're going to listen to one of my records. It's a bit excessive. You know what I mean? It's a bit excessive, and at times can be like, especially my solo records, at times could be a little on the bludgeoning side.
Uh, cool. Cool. Well, I enjoyed it. Tell you the truth, I listened to it 3, 4 times, and I just kept on picking out stuff that I really enjoyed and stuff like that. So, do you guys foresee any shows coming up, or not
Uh,
really?
Oh yeah, like everyone's got like I've got some touring with Alcatraz, and the Maestro Mysteria's got some touring with Bruce Dickinson. But
Mhm.
when the dust settles, we are going to be doing a bunch of live dates and everything. And the band has played like live what we really deliver the goods.
Right.
And in fact, we were playing a festival back in France, and the fellows were Coroner was headline. It was a small festival, and the Coroner guys were like, they were happy to see somebody carrying the classic metal flag like that. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't really encounter bands that really play in that style anymore, and also just the caliber of musicians and musicianship isn't something you see all the time anymore either. So we're all pretty pleased with the record all in all.
Cool. Cool. You happen to have any merchandise available where people could pick it up?
Yeah, there's like on the Joe Stump's Tower of Babel website, there's a web store and everything, and the label has a web store as well. Silver Lining Music has a web store as well. So there'll be all kinds of merch on there once the record comes out.
Cool. Cool. If someone came to you and asked you about the pros and cons of going into music, what would you tell them?
It's really hard for me the industry changes so drastically compared to when I started out. It's really hard to advise them. But the one piece of advice I would give everybody you really, is it easy? No. Have I done plenty of cool things throughout my, my lengthy career? Yes. Have I been all over the world? Yes. Have I, so, and do I love to play? Yes. But I mean, you really have to love it. If you don't love it, then, pick another line of work because it's not easy.
Right. Yeah.
Even achieve, even successful, being successful, it's not easy, like touring and stuff and all that, it's a grind, but I love it.
Cool. Cool. What's your feeling on paid meet and greets?
I think I'm not against it. I think it's a cool way for bands to supplement to supplement their income, like adding a package. I would imagine it's a shame that some of the really larger bands that are doing really well, that the fees weren't so astronomical, so more of their fans could enjoy the meet and greets and stuff.
Mhm.
Maybe that would be the only thing I would say about it. But I don't have any strong feelings about it. It's not easy because it's not like the record industry, as far as physical a lot of stuff is just with all the streaming and all the digital action, it's just not the same.
Right. Yeah.
So on the road, you kind of have to make money any way you can.
Cool. What's your feeling about vinyl making a comeback?
I think it's very cool. I think it's very cool. I don't know if I'm going to run out,
Mhm.
and because I have tons of CDs, and I spent a lot. I have two older Corvettes that both have CD players in them. So I that's where I listen to a lot of music in my cars anyway.
Mhm. Cool.
But I listen at home too. Maybe eventually, I'll get I'll get a turntable and a modest stereo, and maybe start a small collection of some of the things I really like.
Mhm. Cool. Cool. In your younger years, did you collect anything?
My younger year, I just had a bunch of, like any kid, growing up in the '70s. I had a bunch of records. You
Mhm.
know, I had a bunch of vinyl. Like I think back, Deep Purple Made in Japan,
Uh-huh.
UFO Fawcett,
Hmm.
uh, Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies.
Right. Yeah.
Frank Marino, and Frank Marino, and
Right.
Mahogany Rush live. The great Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. The great Rainbow Rising, Burned by Deep Purple. I mean, when I think of like my record collection, and then when I was younger, and the other thing is you'd be able to go to like record shops and get used records too for
Right.
like very short money.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely.
I'm from New York originally, so you could go to, back when Bleecker Bob's was open, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Yep. Yep.
and there was another place, Norms, I think Norms, which was right on Third, I think it was Third Ave. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like practically on the corner of Third Ave and St. Mark's Place. That was another cool record shop. And then you had, and then Second Coming Records was another one that was in the West Village.
Yeah. I used to go into the city because I'm from Jersey, so I used to take the train into the city and go to St. Mark's Sound, and albums were $1. The used ones. I would just keep on flipping. Even band, I thought the cover looked cool. I bought it for $1. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just bought it.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one thing that was very cool in that era was the fact that you could only find, you could only see pictures of all your favorite bands on the vinyl, or if there was a magazine that came out.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, now it's nice that so many things are accessible for younger fans and stuff, but it was kind of, some of the mystery is kind of gone from it to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was a photographer for Metal Forces magazine. I mean, you
Yes,
can't
of course.
can't go to the store and go buy a magazine no more. You
No,
know?
Metal Forces was like, I was very pleased. Like there was a great review of the last Alcatraz studio record on the Metal Forces site. So I was very proud of that because I still might have like a couple issues, old issues of Metal Forces laying around. There was this other cool magazine, Metal Rendezvous, that was around for
Yeah,
a while.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that
Uh-huh.
metal, but those were like the two really cool, you know, and of course the old days of Kerrang, you know, first it
Uh-huh.
was Sounds,
Yeah.
then it
Yeah, that
became
was big.
Kerrang, you know what I mean? Like so that too, and now it's morphed into classic rock.
Yeah.
Which classic rock, they still have magazines and stuff. I have like the classic app rock on my phone, but
Right.
if there's all of a sudden like a really like I own a couple like I'll buy like the print mag, like they've had ones that where it's a complete special on Deep Purple or
Right.
something.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But it's sad that, like, when we were younger, we would take them magazines and pin them on the wall and stuff. And the kids don't have
Oh
that
yeah,
no more.
oh yeah. I would take out, you know, like here in my workroom, which is cool. I have like I bought it on eBay, but I have like the ad from the very first Rainbow record, and
Cool.
then back in my workstation, I have a magazine ad from the very first, you know, Ingve's debut Rising Force record.
Right.
So you know, so that was, you know, I framed both of those and put them up in my workroom here.
Cool. Cool. So, what was the first concert you attended?
I can't really remember the very first one. I used to go to concert. I like grew up like first in Queens and then on Long Island. So they would have all these cool shows like at the Long Island Arena,
Uh-huh.
and then you know the Calderon Concert Hall. You know
Uh-huh.
I remember saying, like one of the early concerts I went to was ZZ Top when you know this is right after right after Fandango
Oh,
came
yeah.
out. You know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to like cool, you know, Zeppelin, Madison Square Garden, 1977.
Uh-huh.
You know, another cool show. These are just cool shows I remember when I was younger. Or you know, another thing that was awesome, the Deep Purple Perfect Strangers tour on the Reunion. That was awesome.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So, do you think Yngwie Malmsteen might be the best guitar player around right now?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of great players, but Ingve is a young legend,
Right.
and you know, and he's you know certainly one of my favorites. And if I want to hear someone shred, you know what I mean, like he, you know, he's the first one I like. I always find Ingve's playing. Um, you know, fun to listen to and inspiring to this day. And I've
Right.
been listening to him since he was more of an underground guy. You know, when he was under the radar, when the Rising Force record was only in was only available as a Japanese import, and I had it. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. Wow.
and I read about him back when I read about him back in the Spotlight in Guitar Player magazine, and saw that he loved Richie Blackmore and Uli John Roth and Al Di Meola and Bach. And I
Right.
was like, oh, this dude with the hard to pronounce name loves all the stuff I love. I'm going to check him out. I bet he's right up my alley. And then first time I saw Ingve was at you know at Lamore's back in 84, 85. Rock Apple Brooklyn back then. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I interviewed Yngwie one time and stuff like that. And most of the first 10 minutes he talked about Paganini. Uh, I guess he's a piano player or something like
Oh,
that.
no,
But
but Paganini was a violin virtuoso during the Romantic period in Italy, you
right,
know, and he's Italian,
right,
and and played so fast and so virtuosically that it was rumored that you know that he was in cahoots with the devil. You know what I mean? Like another term was the devil's fiddler. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And 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 he did. I mean, his 24 violin caprices kind of set the bar for violin virtuosity.
right. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Are you working on any other project at this time?
I was on, you know, I was on sabbatical. I'm a professor over at Berklee College of Music, and I was on sabbatical from the college
Right.
um, I'm the metal specialist on the guitar faculty, and I just finished a new solo record, and Alcatraz has a few things in the pipes as well. I'm usually busy doing all kinds of stuff. But I finished my solo record a while ago, but it'll be a while before it comes out since I've got like so many other things coming out.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, Joe, it was great talking to you. Days of Thunder, July 4th, Silver Lining Music. Make sure you check it out. Check out the videos. Go to Joe's website, pick up material. Congratulations once again. Would you like to say anything to the fans out there?
No, just check out the new Joe Stump's Tower of Babel record, or you ever want to come see me play. You're in Jersey, so my next show's at the Cutting Room
Yep.
in New York City on July 12th, and it's Joe Shredlord Stump on Facebook, and Joe Stump Official on Instagram, and JoeShredlordStump.com as far as the .com action goes. You know,
Cool, cool, cool. Thanks a lot, Joe.
thanks a ton for having me. It was awesome.
Bye bye.
Bye.